Alrighty, I'm just pulling up to go and get my wheel. They've apparently repaired it. These guys here do a pretty good job. I've had some stuff done with them before, so let's go and get it and see what it looks like. And here's one that's a lot worse than what mine was. This is the front wheel of a Ducati, and it's pretty much as buckled as you'd want to be. I don't even think I would get this repaired if it was mine. I think I would just throw it in the bin and buy a new one. But the guy's taken it in here to get repaired, and they say they can repair them that are this bad. And I think the guy's still making that decision, but yeah. So that's where the repair got done, and from what I can see, it looks a lot more round than what it did when I first dropped it in. I figured I'd explain this after I did it rather than before, because it's easier to show you the components that have come out once they're out, rather than try and go, well, this is what I'm going to do, and you not really fully understand. So now that they're all out, I'll explain how I got them out, and so that you can do the same with your bike. Not all bikes are the same, obviously, so you'll have to obviously check your manual and see if this is the same style, if it's got this obviously same design. In order to get bearings out of a front wheel or back wheel of a motorcycle, and this is not all motorcycles, but this is the CB750 and the R6 front wheel. What it is, there's basically a bearing that sits obviously in its little cradle there, and this sits inside as well. So by that sitting in there, that's in there pressed in hard. This has a little bit of movement, but the only way it can move is when you've actually loosened up the bearing, and it's kind of hard to get to, but what you've got to do is basically get a rod with a bit of a sharp edge on it. When I say sharp, just like straight cut, and put it down in there and just get it close enough to that bearing that's in the inside on the other side, and get it there, and then just get your hammer and just tap this way to try and get a little bit of room so you can get a lip on the inside race of the bearing. So this race here, you just want to, if this was on the inside, if this was the bearing at the very bottom on the other side, all I'm trying to do is basically put this rod in here, just get it on that edge just enough. So you just need to move this pipe out the way. So just do a little bit that way, a little bit this way, that way, and the opposite. Just keep going around. Just go opposites, that way, that way, that way, that way, and just keep doing that until the bearing actually comes completely out, which it will. It's only pressed in there. Now, this is something that I would recommend doing if you're going to replace the bearings. If you are going to probably reuse the existing bearings, it's probably not the best approach. However, if I take a bearing out like this, there's no way I'll be putting that bearing back in again. I just don't think it's worth the time and effort or money that you put into it. You may as well just buy brand new bearings and throw them in there. But this actual spacer that sits down inside there, it gets reused obviously, and you've just got your dust protective cover that sits over the top of there. I don't know which one's which, probably that one, which just get pressed over. Now you can try and lever that off first before, because that sits down and then this sits in here. That's not the correct one. That's obviously off the R6 front wheel, but you get the concept anyway. So that sits in there flush, and this sits just lower than that. Now, like I said, you can lever that out first and then give the bearing a little bit more chance of coming out nice and easy. But I just find that if you bang hard enough and you just keep hitting that out, and you can get a really good edge on that with your tool. If If you can get that on there enough, and you can bash it as hard as you can on all four, then it'll eventually just pop out. One thing to always remember when you're getting something powder coated is any internal or external thread on anything that's steel is going to get coated in powder coating, even where the actual bearing will sit. I've got a plan to show you what I'm going to do here with the bearing to stop any powder coat getting inside that channel there. And I'm taking these bolts out, and there's a tiny little gap. So that little gap there, that actual bolt, the actual shaft of the bolt, the shank, will get covered in powder coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a washer in between those and just put these back on again so that they can sandblast and powder coat the entire thing. And when I pull it apart, when I get them off, get them back from powder coat, I pull the bolts off and the washers will just come out, and then I can actually just have a bolt that's all done in powder coat, and also none of this behind it will be covered in powder coat. I can clean it off later, but why go through the hassle when I can just throw a washer in there? And things like rubber obviously have to be taken out. The way I'm going to solve the problem with stopping any powder coat or anything to get inside here is I'm just going to get some washers, which I got. There's 4 of these, so 1 on each end, and I'm just going to get a bolt, basically put a bolt all the way through and tighten the nut up at the end. But unfortunately the washers that I could get hold of the hole was just a little bit too small, so what I'm going to do is just drill those out to the right size, which is 13mm or 1/2 inch. I thought I'd mention, if at any point at some stage you're after a cordless drill, I can highly recommend the Hitachi, like the brand itself. This guy is probably about 6 years old, maybe older. I have still got the original batteries in that time. I've used it so often. Like sometimes I was doing some handyman work there for a while and I was using this thing daily, and it honestly has just got so much power. You put this thing in low. I've even got a scar on my hand from leaning out, standing on top of the ladder, doing something stupid and trying to drill something, and it pulled me off the ladder because it's got that much power. Like, these things are ridiculous, like, and obviously they last a long time. So if you're looking at getting a cordless, I would highly recommend getting Hitachi. There is a link in the description if you want to go with the same model that I've had this whole time. Obviously it's the newer model, new shape, looks a bit cooler than this one. This one's looking a bit old, but I'll tell you what, like, if I get another one, I'll be getting the same brand of the newer model of this. But once again, being Hitachi, it's just super strong, and I have no problems. Like, all the newer stuff that comes out, they do run with plastic gears instead of steel gears, so something to keep in mind when you do look for a drill, because obviously the steel gears are going to be a lot stronger. And there's also ones out there that are brushless. That's the next model up from this, the brushless, like I've got in the description, because it's just freaking brilliant. I've also bought a few other things with Hitachi. Actually, a lot of my stuff is Hitachi because of that reason. I have had hand-me-downs and people give me tools as well, so I do have a few other brands, but I love this. This is absolutely awesome. So keep that in mind. While we're on the subject of tools, this guy here, the actual Triton itself, Super Jaw, I purchased that, and I tell you what, it has become one of the most handiest things. It is just incredible. I've made this little table just out of, as you can see, some timber, and it goes in the jaws, and basically you can see the vices there at the moment, and it's just locked in with this little timber jig that I've made just to try and lock it in so it stays in place, so I can use the vise, so I don't actually have to waste an entire bench just having a vise sitting there. Because, you know, if you have that sitting on the bench and you want to put something big and flat on top of your bench, you just can't do it because this thing's always at the corner of your bench. I mean, there's a quick release you could probably do, but for me, that is my bench. That's actually my table saw, so it becomes my bench. So it's just, rather than having a bench, having the saw, having this motorcycle stand taking up all this room, I just pretty much keep it as minimal as possible. So this has become an absolutely awesome bench to get everything off the ground. And this thing, if you're sick of working on the concrete floor to drill into something or hold something for you, I'll tell you what, this thing's incredible. And I'll show you how easy it is. If you've seen them, I know you probably just skip through this bit, but for those people who haven't seen it, who are looking at getting something because they're sick of working on the floor, I'll just show you how easy this thing is to undo and change. This little table's kind of handy because you can do things like assembly or putting something together, holding it there, getting it at a good height where you're working. It's just a really handy little thing. This I've had for years also. It's going to take up a bit of room because it's on that post. Now, I don't really want that bit to be permanently fixed anywhere. So what I'm thinking about doing is making a bit of a bracket type thing off the bottom here that goes into those jaws on the super jaw, so that I can take this off and put it on whenever I need it, because it's not something you use all the time, so you don't really want it taking up good real estate in your garage, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'll just take this guy off and show you how easy it is to move things on and off this thing. But it also goes in reverse. So let's say, for instance, you have something that's larger than that you want to hold in your vise. Even say for this bit of timber. See, that doesn't quite go. So I'm like, can't quite fit that in the vise. However, if I just spin this guy around, then whammo, I can fit it in the vise. So it actually holds quite large bits of timber. And that's it, she's locked in. So yeah, I love this thing, it's so cool. Like I said, if you are looking at buying one of these things, and you do want to support my channel and see cool videos like this, then I have got a link in the description of this exact one for you to buy. Otherwise, if you want to buy it somewhere else, that's fine too. So just thought I'd show you that because that has been so handy for me. It's helped me so many times and it saved my back from working on the ground. That's one huge thing that is awesome. So yeah. So now I've got the wheels dropped off at the powder coaters. They tell me it's about a week. They're pretty busy. They've got a pretty big factory here. I think it's like 3 or maybe 4 factories all in one. The dipping is out the back and they've got the powder coating and sandblasting sheds. So I'm going to go with a satin black. I think that's going to be really cool. I really can't wait to get them back. And once I do get them back, I'm going to go and basically go and get tires fitted to them. I still need to get a set of bearings for both front and rear, but then once that's done, I can put them on the bike and stand back and have a look and see how cool it's going to look, and then I can start working on other things and put the wheels aside, or then I know they're done. Wheels and tires are finished, and then it's moving on to something a little bit more important, because there's a heap of things I still need to do yet. Ooh,